L'chaim, l'chaim. Huh?
You want to take the mic? Gotta keep this up for a minute.
I'm waiting for Shmuel and the Parstik to come and tell me if I should start or not.
We're live on COL.
The question is, should I call Rabbi Gancz to come in?
Give it whatever you should call.
Well,
You just start for 5-10 minutes and then we'll make it.
Welcome everyone to the grand Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen, Tashin Bevad. First of all, with Yud Tes Kislev, with Ateres, that's the Lashon of the Rebbe has, the end of Hayim Good. And before we begin, I just want to make a few thank yous to all those that were involved in arranging this beautiful Farbrengen, Morristown, Yeshivas, child and Shliach, who has Mamish put in, ready for 5 years, has been making sure that this Farbrengen is put together in the best possible way.
On this topic, there were 22 questions, which later have since been, the writings were found and published, what the questions were and what the Alter Rebbe answered. It's actually very, very beautiful in Gishmak. It is said that the Alter Rebbe answered 21 of the 22 questions. The 22nd, and each one, the interrogators and the people that were listening in were taken by the clarity of the Alter Rebbe and how clearly what he was saying was right about each and every area that he was asked. The last question was, in Tanya, Perek Aleph, in the end, the Alter Rebbe says that even the chesed, even the good things that are done by Umay Sa'ilam, even that is from the Nefesh Abamis. It doesn't come from a good place, as the Gemara says, "V'chesed lumim chatos," that anything that a guy does is ligarmayu. It can't be altruistic. So they asked him how he learns Pshat. What does this mean? So the Alter Rebbe smiled, and he said, "Do you really want me to answer? In other words, if I answered all the other ones correctly, and I answered this one correctly, I have to put you down. I have to talk. You really?" And they said, "No, we're good. We'd rather not know what you have to say." And he didn't have to answer that question. Accompaniment, without getting too carried away with the Tkufas HaMaiser, when it came Yud Tes Kislev, which was 53 days after the Alter Rebbe was taken to jail, and the number 53 is a very easy one to remember, because 53 is the number of Prakim in Likutei Amorim in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe said it was a day per Perek. For every Perek in Likutei Amorim, he sat for a day. It was the day of Tuesday, and the minhag of the Rabbeim was that there was an Eis Tzara. They would say Tehillim. The way it is divided according to the days of the week. In other words, besides what we say now, according to the Takana of the Frierdiker Rebbe, to every day of the month, we say it as it's divided by the days of the month. In that Eis Tzara, in the Eis Tzara, they would also say it, the daily Tillim, a day of the week. So on the day of Tuesday, you would start in Perek Nun Aleph, and it goes until Ayin Gimel. But that's Yom Shlishi. So he was saying Tillim for Yom Shlishi, and he came to Kapitel Nun Hey, and he was saying the words Palda v'Sholem Nafshi Mikrav Li, and in that moment he was notified Yotzasi v'Sholem Hashem Sholem. I went out in peace from the Yevishter who is Sholem. So it was the day of Tuesday, and Kamuvan, I didn't touch upon all of the efforts that went in mitat Tzaddik Chassidim that Alter Rebbe should go out of jail. But Kamuvan, there was a big, huge simcha by the Chassidim. To add the detail that Yud Tes Kislev is actually celebrated 2 days, even in Eretz Yisrael, where there's no Sveike de Yoime. Yud Tes Kislev is Yud Tes and Chav, because when the Alter Rebbe left jail, they were bringing him to the house of Rabbi Mordechai Lepler, who was a businessman who lived in Peterburg. Not many Yidden lived there. And downstairs, there was a person who was not a chassid. And they brought him there to the house of the not a chassid, and the Alter Rebbe was there for about a few hours, where he served him tea, but he asked him a lot of questions about chassidim and chassidus. And the Alter Rebbe said that those few hours were worse than the 53 days. So by the time he got out of there, it was already Chav Kislev. The Yom Tov became Yud Tes and Chav. Later, this is hard. Not too close. I'm shaking. Later on, as the generations went on, and I'm fast forwarding a bunch of years to the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab said about this day that this is Yoim Asher Oir V'Chayis Nafshenu Nitin Lanu, the day that the life and the light of our neshama was given to us. And of course, the Rabbeim elaborate the difference between Oir and Chayis, which we may yet get to. And they also referred to this day as Rosh Hashanah LaChassidus. It's Yadua, it's known, and this was said by the Rebbe many, many times, that after the Alter Rebbe came out of Peterburg, the Alter Rebbe began to teach Chassidus on a whole new level. Beforehand it was short, it was concise, it was himmeldik, and afterwards it was at a much more verstandiger level. This is based on the story that when the Alter Rebbe was in jail, he was visited by the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. As a matter of fact, the Frierdiker Rebbe actually visited the cell where the Alter Rebbe, many years later, where the Alter Rebbe sat. When he went back to his father asked, how big is the cell? Could 3 people fit in there? Because there were 3 people there at one point. The Alter Rebbe, the Maggid, and the Baal Shem Tov, who of course came from the Olam HaEmes. And the Alter Rebbe said, why am I here? And they said because there was a kitrut, there was a complaint on high that there was too much of a yizgalus of chassidus. So the Alter Rebbe says, should I stop? So they said, no fakert. When you come out of here, it's a sign that you should grow it, that you should do more. And from that point and on, there was a whole new level, a whole new shlav in the geulah of Ateres Chassidus, which is why the Rebbe Rashab refers to it as Rosh Hashanah LaChassidus. Ubemela, there's obviously so much more to say. I'm just giving a skira ktsara, just giving a very brief overview as an introduction to the Farbrengen. But what we understand is like this, is that now that we have the benefit of hindsight, and we understand what Chassidus has and continues to contribute to Yiddishkeit and to each of us in particular, we owe it to the day of Yud Tes Kislev to say Adainter Beirei Olam, to thank the Eibishter for this day in which the Yafutzu Ma'inisecha Chutza began on a whole new level, ad kedei kach that we are beneficiaries from this is galus of Ateres Chassidus that he did by Yomim Haim, but also to thank Hashem for the nishim v'niflois that he does bisman hazeh, that we have a shaychus to Ateres Chassidus, that we have an influence of Chassidus in our life, and that our life is so much more rich and so much more gishmak because of the teachings of Ateres Chassidus. So l'chaim, Baruch Hashem, I picked up my eyes and the Elam is coming in. And so for those who weren't here when we started, we're just getting started, you came just in time. There's l'chaim here on the table, there's some food on the side, farbeißen, say some l'chaim. and I have something to eat. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sing the Niggun of Pada V'Shalom, which is the Niggun that traditionally is connected with Yud Tes Kislev. As mentioned before, these were the psukim that the Alter Rebbe was reciting when he was informed of the B'diyah V'Shalom. And after the Niggun of Pada V'Shalom, I have the distinct schus and kavod to invite Harav Aaron Dovid Gancz, who is a Maggid Shiur in the Yeshiva in Morristown, and a Shliach in Suffern, New York, together with his son, who you will see on your own is Moli V'Gadosh, and has a way of Farbrengen and sharing and teaching that is Pasha Tzolek and the finger. So once I've done my introduction, when I've been Yotzig in Mainz, and we'll sing Pada V'Shalom, it's my schus and my kavod to invite Rabbi Gancz to the microphone. Where's the music guy? Pada V'Shalom? You need the mic? You as well.
We were there together in his first year in Morristown. He just came into Morristown.
I was doing smicha.
You were doing smicha then.
You were doing smicha. Yeah.
First year, right? You came in the middle of the year.
You need someone to sing? I can't sing. better if you sit here because there's a camera over there.
L'chaim. Agut Yontov. I just want to make a little hakdama. I was told that I have to speak in English. I remember once I was in Suffern in a hotel. It was Rosh Hashanah. There were 300-400 people there, and a person came over to me, an Alt Yidl, and he told me, Rabbi, I believe that Lubavitch should start teaching Yiddish classes. I remember my Bobby talking Yiddish. It's such a nostalgic language. It's beautiful. I was a few minutes before the sermon before Tia Shrefer, and I didn't have a cheshbon punktlich what I'll do with this Yiddish class. I told him it's an unbelievable idea. I will take it up one day. But for now, do me a favor. Listen to my English speech, my English sermon. You're going to learn a lot of Yiddish. So please pay attention. If you don't understand the word, raise your hand. It's okay. Or stamos, they say, L'chaim. Agut Yontov. I saw in Ite Gabriel, he says a chosn's Indian has to be sameach, and there has to be a sameach holy guest. This is right. It's Yusuf that Bikurim, the person that brought Bikurim, when he was created with the Gancz simcha, the Akados HaToiv that he had, so Rashi says, Kefilach Besisi, Kefilach Tzibisoni, Zot Rashi, Somachti, Vesimachti Acherim. A simcha that you don't take along other people with you, that you're in a little cubicle and happy, you're not happy. A simcha that Pshat Menent mit alle Yidin is freilich with others as well. So one could think that if that's the case, so they feel about which is sitting here, and we're very freilich, and you need to be freilich with other Yidin, so you gather a whole bunch of people to be Mesameach then. If that's the case, it's a Torah's God. The Alter Rebbe said clearly in the Lashon, he writes in his letters, which we'll quote soon, but one of the words it says, Lo yolai levadi hoy radav razeh. You know, it's very seldom when you have a yantiv, a hatzalah, that you have the words of the tzaddik, of describing it and prescribing it, how it should be held, and what it is, really the meaning of it. It's not just a hergish of Chassidim. The Alter Rebbe writes, Lo yolai levadi hoy radav razeh. It wasn't just a me. This was a kidruk. This was something that came out against the entire new avodah of the Baal Shem Tov that he brought down. The Yeshivas Vayomim as Tzadikim would call, Talmidei Baal Shem would call the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, and they wanted to stop it in its tracks, and they did all the inyanim chas v'shalom to stop that. It shouldn't have a kiyum. And the Alter Rebbe writes it to the Heilige Baditcher, and he writes it to the Baruch, as we'll read the L'Shemus. I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I'll just say a few words of it. The Alter Rebbe says, Ya Moshe Hasem Oisi, Hashem took me out by Aleinu, and he brought me up, he elevated me, Levasei Ranovim, to give them Surah Teiva, or Yishrei Leiv Simcha, the Yishrei Leiv, or the big Simcha, Simchut Tzadikim Hashem, he says all Tzadikim should be freilich. V'hilaltem Hashem Elokeichem, and you all should be Mahalel Shem HaGodol of the Eishter, Asher Imos, it doesn't write Asher Oso Imi, or not even Imoni. Asher Oso Imochem, Lahafli, Ad Ein Mispor, Agido Vadaveir, Otzno Misape. It's the loss of the Alter Rebbe, which is, everybody knows, the Shoynoi Hazor, the Chosel Liyatim, in Ois, the Alter Rebbe writes, and this expression that he felt that he was sitting in jail just for the idea of the Kitrik, of to take it off, of Kahal Adas Chassidim, and for Klal Yisrael. Kihifla Hashem, v'higdil Asis Ba'oretz, v'hifli v'higdil Shmoi HaGodel v'HaKodesh, Asher Nizgadel v'Nizkadesh v'Rabim, befrat be'eni kol asorim v'chol avamim. And he writes weiter, Yipole hadom v'hafle v'felo, v'omru azoysi, ki im me'es Hashem v'oysi azoysi v'flos be'enei. Al-Kaponim, the Alter Rebbe, writes it very clear that this is not a yontif for himself. Not even a yontif for the Baal Shem Tov, but for Talmidov, the Talmidov, and he writes, Asher Osei Mochem Lahafti. I want to touch upon a little bit, what's the taka the shaykhs to all of us? What's it the shaykhs to, you see Yud Tes Kislev, we know many years, it goes back more than 100 years, more than 200 years. So that Yidden all over the world, we know it's the Maggid, the geulah. Alter Rebbe writes clearly the day of the Maggid, because of the Maggid, when I was holding Poder B'Shalom Nafshi, that's when I came out. And Yidden all over the world from all kinds of different kreis and different chassidim were always had this day as a special talk. So I want to start with a few nekudas. First of all, you should know that there's a Rashi in Chumash by Leah. It says by Leah, it says Matzah Suffern or Yechelu, Zatrash Matzah Suffern, Zatrash Pesach Royal. We all know Rashi was written for Pshutei Shanikra, as Rashi has made it himself, for Rabbi Shanikra. It's about 300-400 years before Yetzias Mitzrayim. And Rashi says in Chumash, Pesach Royal. How could it be Pesach? So obviously we see that Pesach didn't happen at the time of Shtei Alof and Tov and Ches. Pesach was created in Sheishis and Bebereshis. So too was Shavuos and Sukkot. I once heard from a Rav Bluming, I heard he said a Geschmack word. He says there are 3 stations. Why are they called a station? As opposed to the train travels constantly. The station stays in one place. He says, if you live in Williamsburg, Marcy Avenue Station, or in Crown Heights, the Kingston Avenue Station, they're there for more than 100 years. And they're stationary. 100 years ago was a different generation walking on the same station. 100 years later, it's the same station. Other people who need to travel go on the same station. So he said, Pesach is the Yom HaGeulah. It's the Megalgalus Chus Le'Yom Zakai. That's the day that anybody, any time, in any place, in any Zman, who needs a geulah, Pesach is a time of geulah. When Lot needed the geulah, it came to his time. It happened on Pesach. When Klal Yisrael needed the geulah in Mitzrayim, it happened. It's Megalgalus Chus that day. The day of Pesach is already in Rashi Pshutei Shomikra. Pesach. What's Pesach? This Pesach, you'll visit it again in Yud Tes Kislev. Well, you need it again. Why am I saying this? So there's a sefer called Shalis Teshuvos Ben Hashemayim, which everybody knows about the sefer. There's a Yid who wrote Shalis, and he had Chol, and he got his galus from Shemayim, and he wrote it down in the sefer. It's Kabul Chol Tfutzis Yisrael way before Chassidus. And Shalis Teshuvos Ben Hashemayim has tshuvas, 90% of the tshuvas, maybe even more than that, have no date. Very few have a date. There's one tshuva where it discusses about the importance of a chazan who goes to the Yomad, is like a kohen gadol. The chazan who goes to the Yomad represents Klal Yisrael like the kohen gadol was doing Dovid in Beis Hamikdash, and therefore the importance of him to go to mikveh before, like you need Kedushas Yadayim and Raglayim and a mikveh before Dovid. But that tshuva begins Hayoyim Yoyim B'Seirah Yud Tes Kislev. You go in, if you don't have it, walk into any Svarach Geschäft, and you'll find it, a tshuva, most of them have no dates. And he says Hayoyim Yoyim B'Seirah was way before Yud Tes Kislev. But like Rashi says, Pesach. So obviously this day is the day of Yoyim B'Seirah, it's a yontif. It brings out the Reichkeit of the Neshama, the geulah of Neshama that the Baal Shem Tov brought down to the world, the Lichtigkeit of Ateres Havaya, the shine that shines in every Yiddish Neshama. So that's the inyan of the way the Alter Rebbe puts down that this was the Poder B'Shalom that happened, that he went through the Skitri in order to redeem the Heilige Baal Shem Tov and Ateres Chassidus. So I want to begin first with an interesting story before we get into the real crux of what is Ateres Chassidus and Muslim Shem Tov and Megala Gevei. I was sitting in the Chabad house in in Suffern many years ago. The person walked in, obviously far from being from, at least not yet, and he told me, Rabbi, I'm an equal opportunity offender. I believe in no religion, not just in Judaism, because any religion says my religion is the best, anybody else is an infidel and have to be killed. And I don't believe that God, who created everybody equally, would do such a thing, would decide that it's only for one sect that everybody has to be eliminated. It can't be. So I don't believe in any religion. So I had to take a little time for that. I had to spend with him a little while. And I tried to explain to him. And then he added. Then he added also. He said, it says in Sefer HaChinuch, you know that. The accompaniment in Sefer HaChinuch, it says that Ein Adam Reid Sheker L'Manav. That's the biggest raya of the Torah. Because no father gives over a lie to his kids, and it's going down from generation to generation. Every father gives over to the children. So the Kabbalah, the Messiah of Har Sinai, is the foundation, the hisorerus of Yiddishkeit. So he says, well, I understand, it makes sense. No father lies to a child. But if that's the case, Islam doesn't lie to their children either. And so does Christianity. It's a rule of nature, a rule of normal parents. It has nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. So how are you so sure that Yiddishkeit is what's... So I told her, first of all, I don't want to get involved, it's not the place for this. I told her, first of all that the chinuch said was that it's not broken telephone. All it says is that whatever the father said 2,000 years ago is the same thing that came down one generation to the next generation. If we're eating matzah today at Morristown and we dip it in hisorerus, you can be rest assured that your Zayd did it, and you can rest assured that his Zayd did it as well, and then it goes back to Mitzrayim. But what they put in at the beginning, that doesn't tell you if it's true or not. Whether a person stood up and he said, I'm a Navi, and believe me, if not, you're all going to be killed, the story is true, yes. But who says he's a Navi? Or if two people woke up and they didn't see him in the grave, and they said he went up to Shemayim, if somebody will deny that he never lived, well, that's not correct. He did. But but Yiddishkeit, with a few million people together with Noshim, and people over 60 and under 20, a few million people who heard the Leah and saw the Caldwell and had the revelation of Hashem himself, as the Rambam explains, this is the biggest Yehudis. That's the portion to them. But then I told them, I want to ask you something. Two people have an argument. One says, Chalvus is the nicest, most beautiful sefer in the world. I told him it's called the duty of the heart. The other one says, the Silas Yisharim, the path to the just. That is the most magnificent sefer in the world. Who do you think is right and who do you think is wrong? He looked at me and he said, Rabbi, I never learned either of them. I wouldn't know which other page it even. But I can imagine they're both right, they're both wrong. Two people see differently everything. I told him, you know what? You're so right. They're both holy books. And you know what? After 10 years, it's very possible that the one who learned Chavos Halvavos is looking for something fresh, and he's going to go to the Silas Yisharim. And the one who learned the Silas Yisharim and arguing this is the most magnificent sefer in the world will start learning Chavos Halvavos. So I said, you're right. So I asked him, let me ask you something else. One person says Chumash is the most fundamental book in the world. It's the 5 books of Moses, the Bible. Chumash! The other person says, yes, you're right. But you know what? Chumash without Rashi, you don't know what you're talking about. Chumash with Rashi, that is the real thing. I asked this fellow, tell me who's right here. He looks at me, he says, I never learned Chumash without Rashi. But I assume the one who says Chumash with Rashi is right. Because I don't believe any person who learns Chumash with the proper interpretation, the most classical interpretation, which is called Rashi, would ever go back to learn Chumash without Rashi. It's not two different opinions. is the in-depth of the first. It's furthering the first into a deeper level, which you don't go back. So I told this fellow, I don't believe, I know there were many people who, Rahman al-Islam, unfortunately I don't know many, but there were people who, Rahman al-Islam, left the Jewish religion because the Galach had pushed upon them and forced them, and they made a boycott of his business. He wanted to become a doctor, a lawyer. He wasn't accepted in the university unless Rahman al-Islam leaves his faith. There were some people, unfortunately, throughout the history who did that. But I don't believe you can count on one or two hands a person who finished Shas, Babli or Shalmi. Then he went to Zoyer and Arizal, and then he felt something is missing. Let me try Christianity. I don't think you'll find so many people, or even one, who did that. That tells me these are not two different drachim. There's only one derech, which is the Rebbe Shliach came down and he said, and that's all there is. Because anybody else would always gravitate to this, but there were many, thousands, Kuzrim and other Gated, who weren't forced to become Jewish. They went on, they did it at stake of giving up their life. They went right away onto the altar when they became Gated. And they did it anyway, because that's the right way. And that's the real proof, that it's not two different ways. Yiddishkeit, everybody's trying to emulate, to mimic it, kekuf b'fnei adam, because this is the only thing. Chassidus, Rabbi say, is not two different ways. It's Yud Tes Kislev. So l'chaim. Chassidus is not a different way, another derech. Chassidus is the use of the Temimim from Galatei. And B'meila, you can see by Chassidim also, when it started out in the times of the Alter Rebbe, there were very few Chassidim. And that's why the Kittrig was. That's why they were almost successful. There was an entire world, an Ashkafa, Weltansham, of an entire Welt, and kept them. But finally, after it broke through, you have hundreds of thousands, not more than that. Practically every chassid was once belonging to those who call themselves Messiah. And once you had a taste of Ta'amu, and you start seeing the beauty and the Gancz, the Lakewood that shines out of the Divrei Tzadikim, the Dvarim, the Baal HaTanya, the Heilige Talmidim, that you see how it's Moishem, the Neshama, it opens out the Neshama, it gives an uplift to every Tzibrakhanei, and to every big guy in the college, which all the Talmidim of Hashem were all misnagdim. Geulah, Atzumim, the Mazritcher Maggid, the Toldas, the Haflah, the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was thinking to go on the way to go to the Vilna Gaon first, and he was machled as Lenin Kenach Shel Abisl. The Daven and Veisik Nachlash, I didn't know, so let me try to go to Mizrich. The Alter Rebbe, we don't have a Muslim was named the Yehudis and the Gancz. Maybe we'll touch upon it maybe later. And he decided to become Aduk and Dovuk and Mekusher Kol Nimei Nafshay to the Mizritcher Maggid. We can imagine the Gancz of the Mizritcher. Yeah. But Mela, there's a Simcha Seinu. So all the Yidden, whether this was your minute, or Daven Ashkenaz, Daven Svar, whatever, whether you live in Lakewood or Williamsburg, Borough Park, so Nish Negeya, there's a Ateres Alraya, there's the Eil Hargonus, which is hidden. And B'meila, the Baal Shem Tov bring this Ateres, and we're Misameach, and Simchasai, to bring it out through Simcha, then it shines upon us, and we all have a chelik in it. And as the Baal HaTanya said, that anybody is going to be Sameach and by Simcha, three different Nischoyes, I'll take him out, and I made Tzad, and I Melcha, and I go, and I geulah, and from Gehenna, different Nischoyes, that he said that everybody's Misameach with him, which means we'll have a kesher to the Dinyan. Simcha is Makasha something to this, zu klären auf uns, Teres Baal Shem Tov und die Reichkeit von Tes Kislev Farbrengen. Das was an Akdam. I want to talk to a mechanech. He said, when you want to sell a bottle of wine, you don't explain the wine. You don't say, it's a little fruity, a little sweetish, a little sour. You have a tasting. And people get a taste, a sip. Oh, give me a case of this, a case of that, you know. So I heard Mechanech, he said, you don't tell kids, down. He says, I took a class of 8, 9-year-olds, and I taught them for 2 weeks the types of Aleinu L'Shabeach that we say every day, like we say Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in the middle of the davening. And I taught them the words Aleinu L'Shabeach, Aleinu HaKoyel, what it means, and the Ba'alkei, Nekavah L'Cho, Hashem Elokeinu. He says they learned it in Reina Neshamas, Havu Pipshul Tenekesh Beis Rabban, and they learned it for 2 weeks, Aleinu L'Shabeach. And then I got them all together, and we said, Kinderlich, hide the gates and Zogen, today we're going to say Aleinu together. You should have been there by that Aleinu. He says, the roof came off. Instead of talking with the Inyana, let's start discussing a little bit, a shtickle taste of what Chassidus teaches, to get a taste instead of saying drashas. Was was Chassidus? There were ehrlich Yidden since Avraham Avinu, even before Noach, Shem, Sheselach. There were tzaddikim, geulah, kedoshim, ge'enim, all the years since Matan Torah. What did the Baal Shem Tov come to be a Mechadish? Or at least not Mechadish, to be a Megaleh? One of the Niggunim that Baal Shem Tov came to be Megala, not one, this is the main thing, is simply Achdus Hashem, Achdus Havaya. In other words, we could do Avedus Hashem, we could be Ehrlich Yid Be'emes, the Daktik Kalika B'chmura, and in the most significant way, we could fast on Shabbos, but in the Kudah, at the Eimish soll dort sein, that's what the Baal Shem Tov wanted. I'll give a question to Moshe. Imagine there's a doctor who discovered a medicine for Yana Machner He worked 25 years diligently. It was Appliedus Kayomim, and he really worked hard, and finally he got to the bottom. He got a medicine. You take it 10 days like a pill that you take for strep throat. That's it. 10 days, no loss of hair, no loss of appetite, no hisorerus. 10 days, a pill, and it's gone. You can imagine the status of this doctor. He'd become the celebrity of the world. If any news media would want to have somebody to interview, he would be going from one place to the next. He's the celebrity. If there's a Nobel Prize for medicine, $25 million, so absolutely goes for him. And there's no question that he deserves every bit of it. You know how many lives he saved? Even Nefesh Achas is Oilam Mole, Kolshkin and Oilam Mole, millions of people. The question is, when he goes to sleep that night, after the discovery, with which sipuk hanefesh, with which satisfaction does he go to sleep that night? If he goes to sleep that night, that Baruch Hashem, he is now the biggest celebrity, he belongs in Hollywood, not in medicine. If he goes to sleep that now I'm richer now, $25 million richer than yesterday, he belongs in Wall Street. If he goes to sleep with that nekudah, that the millions of people today are alive and well, and with their families, with their children, with their grandparents, and so on and so forth, then he's a doctor. That's what a doctor is all about medicine. The question is, does he deserve the 25 million? Absolutely. It's not even enough. There's not enough money in the world you could pay him. Does he deserve all the honor? Absolutely. Who else should get it if not a man who gave away 25 years to save humanity? Who else should get it if not him? But is that it? That's beating around the bush. What it is, he saved millions of lives. In Avodas Hashem, we need to have incentives. We have an Nefesh HaBahamis. The Nefesh HaBahamis fights us every day. And the Yetzer is there. And it's not easy. It's an uphill battle, everybody knows. And we were born for this Muhammad, as the Chabad says. And it goes on Yom Yom. It's a very difficult Muhammad. And a behemoth is a behemoth. A behemoth needs stroi, rubber, to be able to continue. So you need to give him schar. You need to give him a lot of things. So there are many incentives that makes a person want to do things. But for the nefesh of the kids, he knows nothing. He knows Vani, Kirvas, Elikim Li Toiv. What is the avodah that I need to do over here? Is Ani, as the Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya would comment this thousands of times, and they would say that Lashon, the Lashon HaMishnah, Ani Nivreisi L'Shamash Haskoini, or the Alter Rebbe, Ani Loi Nivreisi, Elo L'Shamash Haskoini. Of those is the Niggunim. So all the Yonim can help, and we could be Elchim. There were many Elchim, there are thousands of them. Mamish Elchim, Tzadikim. But the Niggunim, the ganze Koch, the entire Koch of Ayid soll sein, Avodas Hashem, the Eibishter. It's Chassidus is ein Niggunim, a Mechker Elikim. There are many svarim that make you ehrlicher and frumer and better. And then connecting us to the Eibishter. And Oiflam and the Neshama. The Kirvas of the King is what I'm here for. And that's what the Eibishter will from us. That's what the Eibishter wants from us. That's the Eibishter of Shem Tov, in a nutshell. Of course, Idoch, Pirushay, and Zulgemoyer. Many svarim, svarim that we have to see it in every page and every line, how this comes across. Actually, you know, as soon as Yud Tes Kislev has to be dafke done in Lakewood, because the ganze Meise is angefangen in the Litte. It wasn't in Ungarn, it wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. So it's angefangen in the Litte, and dort gewinnt the ganze Neis. So it reminds me of a story of Yehud Khan, who came to Lakewood to give Shiur, and he came to Muncie and to Park, and all of a sudden he had Hillel's Geduld, never went into a fight, even though there were a lot of people who were not used to Tanya, not used to this type of talk. So a person came over to him once and he told him that, you should know, he told him Yiddish for states, he didn't speak English, you should know that Chassidim are very good, gewaltig. They're such a koch, a varmkeit, and Lubavitch, they do such kiruv, the thousands of people that were karuv. It's amazing, you can't believe it. But you have to admit, Teda belongs to us. Teda is a Lakewood. And we all didn't scream, we didn't deny it. It was, of course, where everybody knows the Sutz G'dal, Teda, was Teda Ateres from there. Everybody knows that. It's not a shayla. So the Yehud told him, I want to sit down with you and I want to learn with you a Baal HaTanya. Is that okay? I was nicht. Tomchei would understand what Baal HaTanya was not saying. It has a head on his shoulders. So he started learning with him Baal HaTanya. Baal HaTanya is a page that explains how all the mitzvahs connect to each of the Eibishter. But the way Teda does, he calls it Yichad Niflo She'ein Yichad Niflo K'moi Boya. That Teda, the words of Teda is Chachmos and Tzei Shalom Kedosh Baruch, nothing else. The words of Teda is Ma Mayim Yodim L'Mokim Givoya L'Mokim Nomach. Why does the Chazal compare Teda to Mayim? In Suffern Kabbalah or the others, we always talk about Ateres, light. Spheres, they shine, they come down. But you see, if you take a look at that light, over there, it has probably 3,000 lumens. Over here, I need to put on my glasses to read my page. As it goes further and further away, it diminishes. becomes less and less. Mayim, take a bottle of mayim, you go up on the 3rd floor and pour it down. Nothing is left there. All the mayim ends up here. Teira is like Hashemayim, in Mashgich in the Basko. The Malachim were fighting to know Hashemayim. Why were they fighting? You have the Ruchnis, the Kichelik, and the Yidden. There's no Basar the Chalav L'Mayla, as the Malach, as Abraham tied to them. There's no other things. There's no tefillin in the Mayla. There's the Ruchnis, the Kichelik, but the physical tefillin is only here. Yeah. And they knew that when the Rebbe get the Teira down here in the mountain, what happened by Kabbalah Satira, that the Rebbe is a Rav gekommen, or steht by Yeder Tavaya Har Sinai, and he took it all down here. That the Tachlis, as we'll talk soon, the Tachlis is Dafke here, Chassidus Chassidus, Nishlamayim. The Rebbe was Yich Damasco. It's clearly they lost it, and that's why they couldn't take that. Yeah? So Ma'amayim Moed Yedim Mokim Geulah Mokim Nuch. The Ritzoyne Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, K'shayita Nuven Kach, and B'Shem Kach, Yeh Apsak Kach, that's the Ritzoyne Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu that came down here in Lamata. When a Yid is massing this in the Seichel, he becomes Miyuchet. Nisachet with the Ritzoyne Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Ritzoyne Yecha B'Meish Nezor Chalkes, and B'Meila, the Werte Miyuchet with Neish Neimetzies. Very stark choices. We have to learn this Peirik over and over to see what Teira is. So Rabbi, instead of timing, as I argue, so learn this Peirik Tanya. He finished the Peirik Tanya. He was a smart man. He understood it very well. And he was taken by it. Wow, he said, Meirik, but that's the right information. I was talking about Teira. That's the right information. The Moshe what gewollt, he wanted, there is nothing outside. Leis asar bonim inay. Nicht leilem haba, nicht leilem hazar, nicht schar ve'oinish. It's all him. So God is not standish. And that's what Chassidus uplifted so many things and everything in Teira. Because in all the Niggunim, Dovid the Niggunim der Eibishter. I remember a story. I heard once a story that there were Bacharim who were going on Pfitzah in Borough Park, the outskirts, and there was a yeshiva. And the Bacharim saw that a Bachar was walking down, 16-year-old Bachar was walking down, 17, 18 maybe, walking down stairs, and he's crying. So they went over to ask him. He wouldn't answer. It was, bug off, strangers. Mind your own businesses. But some kids have a sprach between themselves. They looked at each other in the eyes, and finally the kid opened up a little bit, and he told them that he has a problem, a very difficult problem. He says he has a chabad who sits next to him, right next to him. He's a genius. He learns 7 blat a week. 7 blat a week. With the Rishonim. And he could chazar it about very much. And I, the Shlamazal, was sitting next to him, and I could learn one of it. It'll take me 7 weeks, and everything in that I wouldn't know it. And I plot, as my heart's gate is, I can't look at my tsar. So he said he went to his mashgiach, whatever, I'm like a short story, he went to his mashgiach, and he told him maybe if the tshuva, wait, the Shiur told him that you're a tzaddik, mamash a tzaddik. But can't just know, maybe it's not cheshbonus why he made it, whatever. Maybe it's from the Friedrich Gilgul, whatever. So he said, thank you so much, but I have no shaykhs this anymore. I can't. I'm becoming an 18-wheeler driver. I'm just learning, I'm getting my license, and I'm going to start driving a trailer. And he says, and finally, this is the moment, he tells the Bacharim, that I said goodbye, and it's the last time I'm stepping in yeshiva, and I'm going out into the world driving a trailer. And you can imagine what that means, 16, 17 years in yeshiva, 18 years. I told my friends, and now I'm going by Paul B'Ishma Alochiv, again on Nayavel, I'm crying. So what do you think Lubavitcher Bacharim do in such a time? It's Lubavitcher, they started nagging him. Write a letter to the Lubavitcher. He looked at them, talking. I never heard of them, basically, because that. So kids are kids. They were triumphant. They got him to write a letter. And sure enough, he got an answer from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe wrote to him, Tanya is a place about Nachas of the Eibishter. So the Eibishter has two types of Nachas. One Nachas he has from that book who sits next to you. 7 blank Gemara in a week, knows it Baal Peh, diligent, learns 18 hours a day. The Nachas of Shemayim is unbelievable. But then there's another Nachas. The Nachas is of that Bacher who sits next to that Bacher, who toils and toils and toils for 7 weeks on one Amud Gemara. To have a Yichud Niflo, Yichud Niflo Gemara with the Eibishter, and toils no matter how hard it is, and he breaks himself and does it again. He says, are you ready? And he writes there, Suffern of the tachlis of everything is Ani, Lo Yivresi, Elo, the Shamash Eskoini. That's the bottom line. What difference between you and him? Absolutely nothing. It's two nachas in the Eibishter has. Are you ready to take away the Eibishter's nachas and leave and drive your trailer? I heard later the story that I didn't have mind, but that he became a bigger yeshiva in Baruch Park and Adai and Marov and Mesish. That's me, not the Yehudis. You know, they say something else to say. They used to say, Verschiedene Rebelach, the Weis Moises, and the Weis Moises. I said in the Taylor, the Oises Moises. I want to see the Oises, they know, not the Moises. I want to see the Oises. So the Moises and the Moises, fine, and the other is the Weis Moises. Aber der Nekude, Oifem a Yiddische Herz, mit der Nekude von Baal Shem Tov, was ist da eine Nekude da? That I should become big, I should become a Rav, I should be dead. And the Nekude is Anilo in the Vresi Elo, the Shamash Eskoini, and this is my Ikir in my life, and this is who I am, as we're going to see soon in Tanya. This is my whole life. You know? The Mishnah says, Yof Shach as Leila Mazeh, Yosef Mikol Chai Yoyel Mabah. But the Mishnah also says, Yof Shach as Leila Mabah, Yosef Mikol Chai Yoyel Mazeh. So let's think of it for a moment. Yof Shachas in Leila Mabah, Shachas, more than Kol Chai Yoyel Mazeh. How do you interpret Kol Chai Yoyel Mazeh? Chai Yoyel Mazeh is Molet Tzar, Agnes Nefesh, pain. So we have to take a person who would be like Shlomo HaMelech, and like Shlomo HaMelech was shaita when he had everything in the world. A person should live 70, 80 years, have not one single tzar, nothing, only honor, covet, pleasure, sipuk hanefesh, ad b'li dai mamash, every second of his life. No such mitzias. Put it all together, accumulate it for 70 years, and then you say 1 hour, it puts to shame all of that. It's nothing. Can you imagine Olam Haba a day, a week, nitzchias? There's no words. AI can't explain it, believe me. It's beyond anything. Yeah? And then comes the Mishnah and says, well, wait a second. It's so gewaldig. That's maybe the $25 million you give for that doctor. But then, the Sha'achas Bo'elam Hazeh, that I need the Vresi, that I do Nachas Ruach La'aboyre. Olam Haba is Nachas Ruach La'anivre. Olam Hazeh. That's where the factory is doing, not a payment. That's the actual thing of giving Nachas Ruach La'aboyre. That's the whole creation for. It's not Nachas. Shomarti v'naseh l'tzeni, as Rashi says. And that's the Tachlis Abriya. Then Sha'achas, billion nivroim don't come to Beire. And that's the Nachas Ruach l'Beire. And that's the Schar, Nachas Ruach l'Niv. So there's a Sichot del Baal Rebbe, and he asks somebody the Kasha. And the Kasha is, the Rebbe is Tachlis HaTzedik V'Hayeshev. And schar be'inish is a chelik for the Yid Gil Nikrim, the Rambam. You don't believe in it, Rachman al-Tzun. Rebbe's the promise. He said, if you do good, as we said before, the doctor deserves it. It's just not what it's. That's not what it's all about. But of course, he deserves to get paid for his nights. The Rebbe's the tachlis hatzedek. Of course, Yid will get Ganeid and Ayin Loira Asa, the Kim Zelesecha, was a Yid get Suffern to Leah. Yid get the biggest schar, so stuck aggressors. But frag the Rebbe, but if it doesn't come close to the mitzvah, so it doesn't pay. You have to pay middah keneged middah. If the Shliach is greater than Kol Olam Haba, then which central bank has enough to pay for this one mitzvah? So the Maggid said, Olam Haba, as we know today as Ganeid, can't pay it. Olam Ganeid is not the ultimate. As we know, it's a machlekes between Rambam and Ramban. Chassidus, Kabbalah passes like the Ramban, but Olam HaTchiyah, Shiur, that's the tachlis, and that will remain for Nitzkis. Zvos, in Olam Haba, meaning Shiur, Olam HaTchiyah, then, let Zayin V'ro Kol Basar Yachidov Kipi Hashem Dimei. The whole halamas, the state of Olam Hazeh, Olam Miloshen Helam, will be lifted off. This galus alikus with Zayin for jeden Stein, as the Gemara says, a stone will scream Shabbos Hayeh. And the ganze Welt wird schreien, ein Neud Mulvadoi, Emes Malkeinu, Efes Ulasoi, we'll see only Malkeinu, we'll see only that. At that point, at that moment, wird Ayid Zen, wait a second. Und ich, Akkords Mechoymer, Atipos Rucha, was able to wake up in the morning, wash Negelwasser, and sagen, Meida Ani, Lefonecho, Beder Ani, Beder Lefonecho. And then put on tefillin, nachas to the Beire Oilam. That's how Kach Olam B'Tzoyno. Ata B'Chartonu, you chose that this is your nachas. That me, Hevel Ruach, could give nachas to the Beire Oilam. At that point, doesn't the emes of schar, mitzvah. You can't give another schar. Schar mitzvah means that what? That the ultimate schar of the mitzvah will be when you recognize and realize these galus, what is thus a mitzvah that I have. And my mashal, if you could say, imagine the doctor sleeping at night after his discovery of the medicine. In the middle of his night, he has a chizoyim. He has a cholim that is in everyone's house that they celebrate the Sudas Vedah of being healed from Yanamach. Not only is in their houses, he climbs into their hearts and he dances along with their simcha. Zaydas, Bobbies, Chosin, Kala, Einikla, brothers, sisters. And he's in everyone's heart, and the millions of people that he saved, and he's with them inside, and he feels that simcha. Or does ischar. That's not celebrity, that's not money, that's not beating around the bush. Or does is the zachalei. The Rebbe is around schar, I'm just making it as a very simplistic. Schar Olam Haba is more than money, it's more celebrity. Schar Olam Haba is a lekus, it's a lekus. It's not just. And it's also schar mitzvah. The mitzvah itself creates the malachim, the mitzvah itself creates oilam v'solyonim, which you're going to have the schar. Aber sof kol sof, klappen in Inyan, for nachas ruach lebeira, and in Evreis l'shamash hiskoini, it's like in the Moshe. The tachlis will sein as was, das ist der Emes schar. So b'meila, in alle chassidische svarim, you know, there were many people who had kashas, chassidische svarim many times, talking going back times, was verstanden, it's such sprach. You know, they say a story that there was a teacher who taught a child math. And he told the child, your father loaned somebody $1,000. That person paid back $500. How much does he owe your father? So he took out a pen, and he wrote down 1,000 minus 500. Thought for a minute, says teacher, He owes my father $1,000. The teacher said, you don't get it. You know, he already paid back $500. It's after 1986, you can use calculators. He takes out a calculator. 1,000 types in 1,000 minus 500. Thinks for a moment, says, teacher, he owes my father $1,000. The teacher's lost it. He says, sorry, my little child, you don't know your math. He looks up to the teacher and says, sorry, teacher, you don't know my father. Samal Farhana, and redt sich zusammen. You know, sometimes Keren who has more Talmidim, who has more Chassidim, who's a bigger lamb, who fasts in Shabbos, heilige Sachen. Und allebei, jeden und Tobi alle Sachen, Schleimes. Chassidus came to reinbringen the Pintel, the Nekuda, the Neshama of something. The Neshama is what Chassidus is all about. The Mele tonight is a Yantiv, as ausgelesen. That there was redeemed, there was Chaz v'Shalom wanted to, this Nekuda, Chaz v'Shalom, to put it back into Helen Hester, and the Rebbe should have geholfen. And das ist der Yantiv, Oir v'chayes nafsheinu, and das ist der Stückel Bier in the words of the Rebbe Rashab writes, Oir v'chayes nafsheinu nitenon. And das ist der talk of Yud Tes Kislev, L'chaim.
Chaim. Another brother? How many brothers? Give all regards. The chicken is a really good Cajun.
Oh,
L'chaim, l'chaim. They're saying l'chaim? Mir Saramashim. We spoke before. When Achdus Hashem comes a second Nekuda, all connected, it's all one. But the second Nekuda is called the Neshama. I don't think anybody would ever go into a huge business, to IBM, Ford, Chevrolet, and we'll see a huge sign that says over there, to all of my employees, all I ask of you is do your best. I don't think you'll ever see such a sign, because such a sign would mean that the transmission is not working, the engine is failing, and the tires have no air in them, but you're a good guy, you tried your best. The bottom line of a business is productivity and bringing in the money and being able to sell the product. And if you're trying your best, but you're shlomil and shlomazel, the business has nothing from it. The balabas will tell you, you know what, I could call you for supper, I'll give you tzedakah, but you can't work for me. You know? But at the same time, every mother and every father will tell a child, Tatala, Mamala, just try your best. And so should every Rosh Yeshiva tell his student, his Talmud, just try your best. Why doesn't it work in Toyota, and why does it work here? The answer is simple. The connection, the yachas, between an employer and an employee is all about the bottom line. It's all about productivity. Nothing else. Not friendship, not chesed, kindness, nothing. Just, can you deliver the bottom line? If not, I'll help you in other ways. Not in my business. By a mother and a child and a father and a child, it's not about productivity. I think a mother loves a child to the day that the child is 2 hours old. And the connection that you have between the two is nothing in the world could explain that, and nothing can separate them. The child did nothing yet. And the Ahava is not Hashem or Osit, because he knows what the child will do. It's Etzem Mayatzama Ibosar Mipsari, we're aims, we're one. Chalila, if a father as a child was autistic and he can't accomplish much, does he love him less or maybe even more? If you hear a father who tell you, I love my son, you know why I love him? Because he learned Shas for 3 times. Och and Vei. Here? Och and Vei. Don't, please, a disclaimer, don't ever go out and say that there was a Rav sitting in Lakewood and he said that you shouldn't want your son should know Shas. Chas v'sholem. You should know Shas not 3 times, but more than that. But is that why you love your child, or it's the other way around? Because it's my child, that's why I want he should know Shas more than my neighbor's child. It begins the other way around. The Ahava doesn't begin from the production. The Ahava demands the production. The Ahava demands that you're my child. I love you so much. I want the glicklichste things for you. I want the best for you. Where is there anything better than kilekach toiv nesati lechem teirasi al tazevi? Can't have better than that. This is the best you can have. But because you're my child, that's why I want you should have that. It's not because you have that, that's why I love you. And if it is, it's a business, it's not a father and a son. The Baal Shem Tov, Talmid made an unbelievable kach in that. I once heard from Rabbi Khan, Yud Tes Kislev in Laura Park. He said that the world has a Tes. Some people think there were two Baal Shem Tovs. In the same body, there were two Baal Shem Tovs. One was the one who had the Shishim Giborim, geulah, chikre leif, the Talmid of Hashem who were using in Yehudim and were doing Masakin Neshomes and the learning Kabbalah, you know, like the Nachum Chernobyl told us, you know. And then they had this Baal Shem Tov, which is known that he went around to simple folks and moided them and picked them up their neshamas and blows around achayas, learning with them a little Ayin Yankiv and other svarim to give them achayas. And it seems to be not the same Baal Shem. One is Begavei Mereimim, and one is Lamata De Tachlis. It's to the lowest common denominator. He said it's Atoyas Gotla. It's Davke. Die Tzadikim that elevated themselves, not just to Madregas, not just avoided that they were big Bala Madrega, but they became so much like Anoichi Ofar Ve'efer, that it's nothing more than Anoichi Oimed Ben Hashem Ben Eichem, as Moshe Rabbeinu said. Ich will bechlandish da, I'm not here. I'm a conduit between you and Hashem. And the same way Hashem is Lakewood, it says in Beis Haran, Begabri Pshima Beichoi, Kshem Sha'Hashem Hu Lakewood, the Rebbe is for everyone, because he's a father. Father is for all his kids, for everyone. And so too, Reb Shimon is Hu Lakewood. Because once you get to that, Yechida Le'yachdach, you Dovid to the Rebbeinu Shloim in such a way, B'meila, everyone who's his child is your neshama, is your chelik. It's not chelik elikami mamish, as the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Beis and Tanya. It's all Av Echad Mitzvah. We're all one. B'meila Adarab, mitzad the fact that he was so begavei mereimim, higher than high. That's why he had the shaykhs. Dafke to Apostel's needs. If lav dafka I reach that Tanilo University Elul Shamash V'Skaini, but I'm there with grace of Madregas, then I could be Mekarav Yidden who have big Madregas, or have shaykhs to understand big potatoes, Tifa Yana, but I can't have shaykhs to a person who statements. But if you're a father and you're connected to a father, and you love your father, then you love all his children. Mamela, the Koch and the Shama, the Baal Shem Tov came, was unbelievable. For them, things were befedish measured in your Rabbi. He was a Meira Merenu, he was a Meira Merenu. He has, he knows so many prakim, he knows so many nesechtes, and things were befedish measured on the accomplishments, which is a mahalach. There is such a thing as accomplishment that you need to accomplish. And the Rebbe wants us to accomplish. That's what Torah Mitzvahs is. You know, that's like every father we said before, we want, yes, when the child is a baby, we love him because he's mine. But then eventually the love is expressed in discipline. I want you should listen to me. I want you should follow me. I want you should give me nachas. Of course, accomplishment is what life is all about. But it doesn't begin with accomplishment. It begins with who you are. Are you b'ni b'cheri Yisrael? Apostle in Parsha Shmois, when the dialogue between Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem begins about Gancz, Go to Pare, the Pasuk, Vayomer Hashem Moshe, Boil Pare, V'martu Elov, Koyomer Hashem, B'ni B'chayri Yisrael. End of quote. That's what before Matan Torah, before Morah, before Shabbos, before anything. I have a b'chayr that you Mitzrayim, you Golas are holding them in captivity. I need my kids back. B'ni b'chayri Yisrael, das is hascholas ha-geulah from Mitzrayim. And the Baal Shem Tov kocht in this neshama, and that's why he had a kesher to the highest of the highest. And to be mekasher these neshamas, no matter which neshama, the lowest neshama, to be mekasher l'aviyim shebashamayim, to be mekasher them. In Tanya, there's an interesting thing. Everybody knows that every Yingel and Cheder knows that such a thing is called the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. Chazal are full of this. Every Yid knows that. In Chassidus, it's also mentioned a lot of times. But yet, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, mostly, 90%, it's stellt havek in the beginning of Perig Aleph and Perig Beis, stellt havek anai yisoit, there's such a thing called Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh Abamis. What did he want to accomplish with bringing its different Lashonos? And we can't use the word Nefesh Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Instead, we're going to use Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Abamis. If you use Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara, then first of all, it's all about production. It's all about accomplishment. In other words, who is Ich? Who's the me? The me is Shmedel. Where it was? Shmedel. I have two consultants from two sides, Malachim, and one pulls me to do the good things, so I'm going to be productive, and the other one is trying to make me unproductive, to schlep me away from the good things. But the bottom line is that even when I do good things, it's me, Shmedel. When I mess up, it's weiter Shmedel. On the one side, I listen to this side, and the other times, I listen to that side. When we say Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh Abamis, it's about my Metzius, my Mahus, my essence, who I am. It's not about my doing. Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh is Rashi Taiches and Yeshus Nafshechem. It's like Yeshus Nafshechem, Rashi says Rotzeh. You want? A Nefesh has a Rotzeh. A table has no Rotzeh. You could dance on a table 24/7, and you will never complain, how dare you never give me a break. It's not because the table has no mouth. Today, Baruch Hashem, we have civil rights for animals, activists. We could have civil rights for tables. Lawyers would come and taina, you don't give a break your table ever. Nobody will ever come to that taina. Why not? The table has no nefesh. He's not here. And nefesh means a ratz. A chayas, a life, has a want, has an ich. Try to touch a little ant. It's going to start running for his life. He touched his ich. He tried to chase him. The Alter Rebbe is in Masber, brings it from the Arizal, the Chulum, and Shomas Ani Yosisi, Apostle. The Yid has two neshamas, meaning he has two ichs. Not consultants, not advocates. Two ichs. His real ich, his real emes, is a Nefesh Elokis. Nefesh Elokis wants one thing. Kirvas Elokim. That's all Nefesh Elokis wants. A Nefesh Elokis means tzitzich. He has a hamshacha, a longing to Elokus, to the Eibishter. That's who he is. The same way a Nefesh Abamis has longing to his guf, to enjoyment, to pleasure, and other things. That's a Nefesh Abamis. His ich is my guf. How did a person say once? Guf is Rosh Tevus, what? Guf will fressen, Guf will puffen, Guf will foil, Guf wird foil, and Achri Kichri Sakel in Guf will foil. I can't translate this in English. Sorry. Yeah. But that's a Guf A goof, I'll say it in English, okay. A goof goofs off. Okay, that's the English translation. Ich. Yeah. But a nefesh of the kids has an ich. Because the table doesn't have an ich. A nefesh has an ich. His ich is the Eibishter. It's chelik elokam emal mamish losh of the Alter Rebbe. Chelik elokam emal mamish. So he's a chelik. His amshacha, his longing and yearning is to be connected to Hashem every moment. So the Alter Rebbe is still tavek. So first of all, a yid, no matter how far he's gone, no matter how far he's lost, he's never lost. As a child, and a neshama is a neshama, and he's a chelik l'kamanah, a chelik of elikus. Secondly, that the avodah that he does, and is the pshat that I'm climbing. I once heard somebody saying, that they said that the difference between Yidden and other religions all try to climb to heaven. They all try to become better and become closer to God, whatever they call it. Everybody's trying to get to God. It says Yidden are not trying to get to God. Yidden serve Hashem because they're from God. Or Shemayim. The Gancz is trying to get to Shemayim. Yidden are from Shemayim. We stellt weg our identity, milekitchile, wer hat zweite Sache. Bemele, when a Yid tut Avodas Hashem, and a Yid does Avodas Hashem, that means, as we said before, it's a yichud, shein yichud nifle kamoyu. It's connected to his sheidish, to his neshama. It's not just the shmedel is there, and he listens, nice listening. And I have an Eved, and the Eved walks with me. I told him, go bring me something. He did a nice thing. It's way, way more than that. It's a connection to the Rebbeinu Shloim. And the Rebbeinu Shloim has his children, which a child serves him, does his er alein. Ach atzmi hisorerus. Yeah. And the second thing is the Nefesh Abamis is not only the Pshat. If you learn Nefesh Abamis, on the other hand, there's also Fakeh. That if you say Yetzer Hara, okay, Yetzer Hara is if he tells me talk Lashon Hara. If he tells me do Aveda. But if I want to enjoy a little bit, some an extra ice cream, an extra baseball, it's a big deal. Nefesh Abamis says that anything which is not the Likus, anything which is not a chelik of Teira mitzvahs, of yearning and ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, is what? That comes from the other side. That comes from your own nefesh. That nefesh comes from Klippa. That's already Klippa. So, but Al Kaponim, in andere Werte, what the identity that the Alter Rebbe got reingebrengt, that my identity, and that's why the iskarbus to every Yid, that no matter where a Yid is, could always be uplifted to the highest heavens. Well, I was once speaking to a person. The person told me, Rabbi, please don't talk to me. I'm so far gone. I did all the Avedis in the world and some more. And it's not shaykh. Tshuva not shaykh for me. It's you're talking to not shaykh. Where does such a feel come from? Where does such an emotion stem? Where does such a feeling come from? If the idea is only about production and about productivity or achievement, you're right. In the business, yes, if you messed up too many times, there's no pathway. There's no way back. There's no way back. He broke his bridges. If it's about a child, I want to ask you a shayla. If a child went and he wrote a book against his father, the most derogatory things, he did the worst things in the world to his father, the pain is unbelievable. The tsar is unbelievable, more than any tsar that a worker or an employee can do to his balabas. Way, way more. So even though it's so close, but the tsar at the same time is so close, what happened? How many millions would a father pay that somebody should convince this child to come home and say, Tati, I'm sorry. Tati, I can't be without you. I need you desperately. Please forgive me. How many millions would the father give that should happen? Kol ma sheyesh li yitein ba'ad nafshay. This is nafshay. It's his child. So if we think tshuva begins from the child, Ateres. Way before the child starts to wake up that he wants to do tshuva, the father is waiting for him for years and years and years, longing, sleepless nights. Mosa yavo ve'era. When will that moment come? Steht im Wald on that. Achakelo b'chal yoyim sheyavo. And he would pay any amount of money. So when the child finally wakes up and he starts thinking, "What I went so far. You know what I did to my father? You know I dragged him down to the gutter. You know what I did to him?" It's the Baal HaTanya. Taking Reisha Shel Melech, Achman al-Tzlam, and you do an Aveda, and you put him into Tes Kislev. It's the Baal HaTanya. Because we're chelik elokam amal. I'm not an employee. Hat sich verzindigt that I sinned against my balabas. I'm a chelik of him. I schlepped him along with me. So far, so much. That's what the Nefesh Elokis tells you. But on the other hand, who does a father want give more to bring him back? The child who went the furthest way, further away, or the child who's sitting closer to him? He'd pay the millions of dollars for that child. So if a child ever thinks, I went too far, I can't do dafka you're the one that your father is looking for. He's waiting for you more than for anybody else. And Shama is a different word for some relationships and connections. And the Shama is a chelik. And that's what the Alter Rebbe calls chelik. I remember I had a Meister Shahoya. It was a Meister Shahoya that was I teach in Morristown. This goes back probably 30 years or more. I went over to a Bachar. I saw a tziklapta Bachar, a Bachar downtrodden, broken, depressed, sitting in a corner. Sagatnish, his learning is not going right. So I went over to him. In those days you were allowed to do it still. I put my hand around his shoulder and I said, Yankala, how can I help you? What's going wrong? He looked at me and said, Rabbi, please find a better target. I'm just here because my father pays tuition. This is not for me. There is nothing to do here. Just find yourself another target. I was so hurt. I was so broken to hear the pain of the kid. I was not saying, Rabbi, please help me, give me a charusa, or help me in otherwise. Just go fly a kite. To see that I have no interest in nothing. It really, I was torn. But I couldn't walk away. I couldn't take no for an answer. I was much younger than that. And I just couldn't take it. So I sat down with him. This is the Maisa Shahoya Shlohoya. You should know. In other words, the Maisa happened. The Maisa happened. You know, they say Rabbi Wine. See, Rabbi Wine used to say, all of my stories are 100% true. The only difference is some of them happened already, some of them are going to happen. Now, this is a true story, but in order to answer this kid, I made up a story. Okay. So I told this kid, let me tell you a story. There was once a couple in town who had the most chashuv people. The father was a Rav, the mother was a Rebbitzin, or a Manehelis, most chashuv people. Or I don't remember, I spoke to that kid and he was far from this thing. I told him the father was a doctor, the mother was a lawyer, whatever it was. So they were walking in the streets one day. They had a little 2-year-old with them. And as they walked the streets, the 2-year-old disappeared behind them in a split second. Somebody snatched this child, kidnapped him. The whole city was up in arms. Everybody went to look. They were called in, all squads, whatever you could, to try to find this child. Nothing. The whole city made a human chain, and they combed through every cellar, every attic, the whole city. They did nothing to do. Nebuch, mother and father, maybe they said Shiva, whatever. But life goes on. The city went back into work. And life goes on. It's 8 years later, and a husband and a wife, another couple, are walking in a store. And the husband sees a 10-year-old kid, a flashback, carbon copy of that 2-year-old kid that his photo was all over, the child they were looking for. It's a carbon copy of that kid, is just 8 years older. He told his wife, do me a favor. That kid was walking around with the Russian couple. He says, do me a favor, go over to that couple. Engage them in talking. If they're Democrats, you're a Democrat. If they're Republican, you're a Republican. If they like Obama, you like him. If they hate him, they like Bush, whatever. Just make sure you talk to them for 10 minutes. And he ran outside to try to flag down an officer. Finally, the officer came. They took the kid. And, of course, they did all the DNA testing. And it came back, of course, that's the kidnapped child. And there's a Russian couple of kidnappers. So the day of reckoning came. There was a day in court. It was a trial of the century. Everybody in the city was there, and everybody was testifying. First came the doctors, giving the proofs of the DNA that this doesn't belong to this couple, it belongs to that couple. And then came the principal. Who are the kidnappers? Oh, this couple brings the child every day to school. And so when everyone is testifying, the doctors, who the couple brought the kids every day to the. And then finally, the kid was given the chance to testify himself. He stood up there in court, and they looked his mother squarely in the eyes and said, Mama, what do you want from me? I know for sure, I'm not stupid. I know for sure that I belong to you because I saw the DNA. I know it's true. I know I don't remember anything about you, but I know that when they took me away from you, that I fainted and screamed and tantrumed for days and days and days, because there's nothing worse in the world than taking a child out of a mother's lap. Nothing worse. I know I was crying, biting, screaming, but they had enough potato chips, enough ice creams, enough toys, enough other things, and finally they calmed me down, and I made peace. But now, everything I have is all them. My friends, my tuition, my school, my toys, my clothes, my good breakfast, all of my fun, everything that I owe to that couple now. Mom, what do you want? Should I do? I don't know you, I don't speak your language. And the mother fainted. Hearing the child squarely denying her mother, I know you who you are, but I'm kidnapped. And I side with my kidnappers. As the Welt sagt, blood is not water, child seeing a mother fainted, ran over, hugged her, and said, Mom, I'm coming home. That's the story in fantasy world. But I told the Bacher, but the real story is you. And the Shama comes down here. Not a yitzit, not a yitzit, no. Rashmel. Shama sata bi tahoirahi. Ata verasa, ata yitzarta, va'ata nafachta bi in me. It's in me. Chelik lekam mamash. Comes down into this world, and in the first moment after it's born, baby cries terribly. He was kidnapped. And Nefesh Abamis took over. And he's taking care. And the baby cries, but he has enough mother's milk, and then he has enough fun and other things. And as they say, he acclimates, and he starts to become comfortable. And then a bocher could come and tell him, like a Shiur or a Yeshiva, and tell him, you know what, Rabbi, find yourself a better target. I belong to my kidnappers, not to you. Do you know how painful that is? Can you imagine October 7th that all of them would turn around and say, you know what? We belong to Hamas. We don't even want to come home. Ados, stellt weg Sefer HaTanya, Ados darf Ayid feel, Ayid has to feel that a moment that he's not looking for Kirvas Elikim, that a moment he's looking for a different Ich. It's not an employee who doesn't do a good job is not productive. Reist sich auf für seine Mama, reist sich auf für sein Schädisch. So the Lichtigkeit der Heilige Baal Shem Tov da reingeblasen ist, that blew into us. Atala Fachtabi, the Lichtigkeit that we look at the Yehudis and the Shama, and the whole Sefer HaTanya is going on this Mahalach. It's a completely different discussion of everything, how you talk about Torah, about mitzvahs, but the Hava V'Yirah, Parchas Le'ela, and all these inyanim are of connecting the neshama to the Beit Ha'olam, which the neshama should nesata be with the neshama where we come with Tes Kislev and Machzef from the Rebbe Shalom. And that's our Avodah. I saw once Ateres Shalom, similar idea. Ateres Shalom from the Rebbe Rashab. I don't think it's a Lakewood Torah. I think it brings it down only. Correct me if I'm wrong. It brings a word from the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says. On Pasuk in Shiur, it says, Yoinosi Sanosi. Yoinosi means my dove, my bird. Samosi means tminas, wholesome. My Gancz fegele, my wholesome dove, my wholesome bird. But the Alter Rebbe teaches Yoinosi is Miloshen Oino. Oino means what? Bluffing. Yeah, Oino. Oino is dvarim. So the Alter Rebbe says Yoinosi. A Yid who tries to bluff. He makes himself that he wants to be good. Be'emes is a Shliach. And he tries, he goes to Farbrengen, he goes to hear the Musar, he listens to a lot of Shiur. He tries hard to really reach heights. But he's not there yet. So the Alter Rebbe, Yoinosi, the Rebbe to Yoinosi, that's what you're bluffing. Samosi, to me, this is wholesome. The Alter Rebbe says, based on the mission of Suffern, that if somebody makes himself a chigir, or a oni, will not pass away before he taka becomes. Merubah mit the teva mit the piranis. Is was? The Bemela is avada navada, but mit the teva is avada. The question is, the Mishnah doesn't say that if somebody is pretending that he's a chigir, that he's taka a chigir. The Mishnah says as a punishment it will become. So the Alter Rebbe could have said, if somebody is pretending that he wants to be good, that Rebbe should tell him with schus, mitzvah, geulah mitzvah, it will eventually lead you that you too will become ehrlich. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. The Alter Rebbe says, Yoinosi Samosi, Shirashirim says, it's wholesome. You are. But what we spoke before, it's explained. If a kid was kidnapped from his mother, or mixed up in the hospital, whatever, two babies were mixed up. And 20 years later he has to donate a kidney for somebody or needs a kidney donation, and they did the DNA testing and he's not a match to his mother whatsoever. And they realize that he belongs to another family. So this kid is 20 years old now and he's searching the world, he wants to know his mother. And he searched, and he lives now in Uruguay, and his mother lives in North America. So he's trying, he's searching through all kinds of computer searches. He finally found his mother. He travels, he comes down, and he starts to come into his mother every day, bring a newspaper, a cup of tea, having a discussion. They don't have the same language. Can you imagine a person go over to him and tell him, Yaakov, were you bluffing? Are you faking? You're trying to get to know this woman. She doesn't know you, you don't know her. Why are you trying? Why are you bluffing? Is that called fake? Tell me, is there anything more emes in the world than a child yearning to know his mother and to know, which is the emes is the only DNA that he has is his mother's DNA. Is there anything more emes than that yearning, that trying? It looks like broken. It looks like it'll take a long time till we'll acclimate, we'll get to know each other. But that's the only emes. We're not trying to get to heaven, to Shema. We are from heaven. I'm not trying to reach my mother. I am part of her. I'm reconnected. This is the Yehudis Hashem through the Heilige Baal Shem Tov. That there is no neshama that is far. There's no neshama that has no connection. Because it's not, if it will be only about your your activity, you're right. Some people unfortunately didn't deserve to become close, didn't achieve enough. They're very far. But if it's the tzad of the Neshama Shanasata bi, it's Tahira, each and everyone could get known to Meibish. Das is the Emes Simcha. As the Rebbe Rashab would call it L'chaim, L'chaim.
Chaim.
The Alter Rebbe was running an exclusive club. The Alter Rebbe was running an exclusive club.
He was running an exclusive club.
It's very hard to get in there, wasn't it?
But, like I said before in the Baal Shem Tov, when he spoke about Yechidim and about, that was exclusive, because the Pashto has no shaykhs, but that led him to have a kesher to Caldwell. The Baal Rebbe was sitting 7 hours Farbrengen. You need to be a big Talmud Chacham to follow. Lomdus, geulah, Kabbalah, everything. But there's Alter Rebbe who has a Chabad house in every little city, so a person does know Aleph base. So there's Alter Rebbe, there's Alter Neshama, there's Ein Zah. Chabad Rebbe, when he teaches Kabbalah, you need to know Kabbalah. You can't be there. And this is exclusive. Also, most people try to be elitist. Most Chassidim in the world, most people, everybody, every group. Most people like to feel we have the best, we're the biggest, we're the Chabad, we're the most Leah, we're the most tzedakah. Yeah? Human nature. Yeah? If it's about if it's about me, then that's what I want to feel. I have the best Maggid Shiur, I have the best Temimim. It's about the Yehudis. Somebody asked me once, why Chassidish Yeshivas? There's all kinds of bachara. Lerner, Mishta Lerner, the elite Yeshivas only have a geulah. You have a yeshiva who's a goy. He wants to say he's going to Shadavis. Who do you think he's going to pick? People he can talk to. You're not going to pick. You have a father who has 14 kids and he makes a yeshiva. Who do you think is going to be there? There's 14 kids. You care about the English. I don't think Chabad goes around saying that we're the frummest, we're the biggest lamdana, we're elite, you don't belong to us. No. It's Hayid belongs to us. Alter Rebbe.
Share it.
you read before about the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, when they asked him the Shaila, how come he wrote in Tanya, Chesed le'umim chatas, that goyim, whatever they do, is only for Yahara, for Gaiba. And can you imagine goyim asking him the Shaila? The Alter Rebbe, instead of answering, this was the last Shaila. He answered on everything, Leah al-Asayra, and the last Shaila, instead of answering, he shmeichlet. Rabbi Gerari spoke before, I think I saw once in the Friedrich Rebbe said it in a little different. But the Alter Rebbe didn't say anything, he just shmeichlet. He didn't say anything, he shmeichlet. And they were makabel it, and then we gave Rai. He explained that the word is given, he didn't say it, that the word is given, the Goyim realized how he answered every shaila they had, so kalei al asayda, in such a geschmack way, they were scared. You want you should answer this shaila too? Best is don't answer. Shmeich. It's a gesundter azeh. But why am I saying it? The Alter Rebbe was named by Klal Yisrael, not by Lubavitch. The größte breite Welt called the Alter Rebbe the Shemar Rav. The Rav Shemar. Like a Pesach Ador, like the Ramah was called the Rav. The Pesach for Ashkenazi Jew, So the Alter Rebbe was given the Shemar Rav, was called the Rav. We find in Tesante Zach, in the Gemara we find many different different Moshe Hoder Be'er of Papa. You never saw Hoder Be'er of Amma? For whatever the reason they had there in Yonam. Shossi Graf, you saw Shossi Gabayim? You can't Shas, but Shossi Graf. And nevertheless, the Rishonim Paskin like Rav, Halacha Kerav Yisuri Kishmu, Halacha Kerav Yisuri, even though they asked the Shaila Rav, but Rav didn't answer. Shossi Graf. Why is that? So, Shossi Rav is because Rav was seeing the things Bel Yonim, he couldn't explain it. He didn't have the words for it. But the Indian is as it. You see sometimes the Rambam says, the Yirali. That's all he says. No Mocker, no Tosefta, no Derberaisa. The Yirali. The Rambam says, the Yirali. Oops, and it's comes. The Rambam says, the Yirali. And then in the later days, you want to write a tshuva, Tshuva is 10 pages, 20 pages, Arichus Gadol. And after became, kommt a zweiter, about Plikte, and then comes another person, he says the opposite. And he writes 20 pages, the opposite. The Rambam writes something. It says, V'yirali. So it says in Amos Chassidus that you have a dark room. And you want to know where the door is. What do you do? So you go around and touch the walls. Finally, you got to a door now. Baruch Hashem, I found the door. You open the door, you start walking, you bump in to towels, to sheets, you bump into a linen closet. Okay, so that's nothing. So you go weiter and you see something that's like a rectangle like this. This is the door. It turns out it's a mirror. It's called process of elimination. You try this and you try that and nothing works. Until finally, you open the door. Dovid. That's one way of figuring out things. That's called writing a tshuva. I have a raya from this Gemara. It's kind of chenzayim because it's a stira to the other Gemara. So Muslim looks like a third pshat, but this pshat is a stira to a further Gemara. Until you come to the pshat, there's a pilpul until you zero it in to what you want to say. There's another way. The other way is put on the light. You put on the light. There's the door. What's your proof? I have no proof. If I need a proof, if I need a proof, it's no good. If it's lichtig, I don't need a proof. He doesn't have to answer. Rav is halacha k'mois. And so zegt met de Baal HaTanya that Hashmeichel, Shosik Rav, didn't say anything. It's halacha k'mois. So it's a chelik l'kamama, but it could be like Tippernaim. Tippernaim is a child of the father. No question, it's the same DNA, but it's in a lower level. In order to reconnect that, you need to have a connection to tzaddikim. And it brings the Gemara says, the Gemara says, and through this, you connect it to the Shekhinah. And the Alter Rebbe says, the Rebbe says, and those are Pesheya, and the Pasha and the Mordem with Tamid HaChachamim, says the Alter Rebbe, their Hashpah comes with B'chinas HaCharayim. You could see them being Yechidin, you could see them davening, learning. It seems like everything is fine. Their connection to Hashem is B'chinas HaCharayim. B'chinas HaCharayim, at times when somebody owes a check to somebody, but he fired him and needs to give him his last check. So he writes a check and he throws it back and he's like, hang the cliff with them or whatever, he throws them. It's like B'chinas HaCharayim. Yes, I give it to you, I owe it to you. It's that if you don't have a keshet to tzaddikim, because tzaddikim are those, und man sagt angefangen von Moshe Rabbeinu, steht der Pasuk gesagt, bei Aminu Vashem, und Moshe Rabbeinu. Also der Rebbe ist ausgestellt, that's how Hashem established this connection to Klal Yisrael, that it goes through tzaddikim. So, tzaddikim, coming back to what we spoke before, the Avodah is only achievement, and it's not forbidden with B'li B'chayli Yisrael. It's not connected to the society, it's be'etzem, achelik, l'kam u'mah. If it's not connected to that, then what were tzaddikim meant? Teachers. What's the Taich, the word Taich from Rebbe? What's the Taich? Rebbe was a teacher. Yeah. Every teacher. So, what do you do with the teacher? You connect it to your teacher. You follow. You listen. You listen. You follow his advice. You listen to his instructions. The Baal Shem Tov Yekuma sagen, nicht das Tzaddik, nicht das Rebbe. He's not giving advice. He is connecting you with Makasher Yidin Laviyam Shema Shemayim. That's his harbor day in and day out. Every nikuda of a Yid is connected to tzaddikim who thought about them, who think about them, who think about a Yid who lives in katzvei tables, who knows where, Farvar von Erges, and Alter Rebbe, the tracht von with sein Tfil, with sein Mikveh, because of that neshama, because through him, he is all Klal Yisrael connected. The Alter Rebbe stellt das weg, das war Pashtus, das war very seicheldike way, but it's way more than that. And the Zetstake, the Appelle Dike Zach, if you look into the Baal Shem Tov Siddur, the Tamid Baal Shem wrote the Yehudis. They signed their names, Ben, mother's name, Ani, Makasha, Nafshi, Ruchi, Nishmasi, Yisrael. Das ist gewähnt Sprache. Hat sich übergegeben dem Nefesh von denen. Can you imagine, it's nicht so die Zeit, I mentioned it before, take the Alter Rebbe. The godless of the Alter Rebbe, there's no words. I actually brought along a sefer of Kinishta de Beirav, given out by New Square. On Shulchan Aruch Rav, Zera Shein Arbet. So they have 10 pages of Shivchei Rav, from all tzaddikim, what they said of the Alter Rebbe. Lo Ye'umen. The sons of Oisias, that if it would be the time of the Rif, it would be like the Rif, it would be like the Rambam. Halach Kemoisa, anybody who says the opposite of the Shaykh, fragment. Oisias, maybe later I'll take it out and just show you the Werte. From Shimon Jalachaber, that what he wrote on the Alter Rebbe. And their grace of Godel Yisrael came to Mazich and became a kusha to Choli Mei Nafshe, to the Masik Shemagid. You know, such a Godel Ad Me'oid. What do you see? You can't learn as a Masik Shemagid was also a Goy Ad Me'oid. Yeah? But what do you see? You see that Divrei Tzadikim wasn't Stam, again Erlich, again Heilig. He had good instructions. Moshe Rabbeinu came to Mitzrayim, not only to the Mitzrayim, to the Yidden. He said, Kvat Pe'anech, what did Rebbe Shliach Halo Yahad Nechicha Levi Yidabru, Hu Yelecha, Atu Tilo Lepev, Hu Yelecha, Hu Yelecha Lepev, Atu Tilo. Yeah? So, Atu Tilo Lepev, Lepev. Yes. Moshe Rabbeinu is a Kvat Pe'anech, kann ich das sehr gut reden, soll ich schicken nach Shliach, dann send the Shliach on, okay, and let him talk. Why does Moshe have to go there? It's quite obvious. And as they give him Matanoim Ameroim, they had Maturgamins. Lav Dafka, they were these big speakers. He said the halacha, the Maturgamin had to tie over against the Sugi and Rambam, how the Seder was with the Tana and the Maturgamin, what they said and what he said. Write it down, and send out the Maturgamin with the settle, and he'll give over to everybody. It's quite obviously there was way more than the Istis. In order to Yid Vayameinu at Megidaf Tom Moshe Rabbeinu was Mekasher Libam Shal Yisrael Avim Shal Shemayim. They had to hear the words for Pocket Pukadati coming out of the Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the only way that it could break through Yidden 210 years and a bitter goals, which was the rice direct the Emunah in every prat. Now Moshe Rabbeinu was a Pocket Pukadati. Yeah, Masber Zayin, you know, you can have somebody writing down the Rebbe states. Head off on his head for them. Yeah? But Mela is a kesher to what we said before, the Baal Shem Tov, this Ein Cheli, it's not a new thing, the Baal Shem Tov, Gerade he demanded Simcha, Gerade he demanded Neshama, and he spoke about Achlis Hashem, and he also had an Eish from his Kashlis and Tzaddik, it's not also. That's the Ein Nekuda, because if you start have to do the right thing, so you can have a Baal Musar. You can have a Baal Musar coming and say good to Musar, and he'll make everybody enthusiastic, and he'll make everybody get in line, and they'll do the right things. It's way more than that. It's not to get in line. But to be Mekasher yourself, you need the Rebbe, which is. They tell a story that one of the big Mali Muslims, I'm not going to say his name, a famous Mali Muslim, came once to a bicycle in the chamber. And he spent the Shabbos with him. He spent the Shabbos in the chamber. And very interesting, he sees that the bicycle in the chamber, Maggid, then he tells Shrayan, then he sings Shmakes Miras, the Niggunim. Then he said a short tzavor, he said Kabbalah di Kinyonim, he said a little Kabbalah, on the bench, and we get to him. He couldn't take it. So tomorrow morning, the same Shalosh Shudas, maybe it was a little longer. So Matzah Shabbos, he went into the bicycle, and I said to the bicycle, you know, if I would have 1,000 Chassidim like you do, I would have moaned and demand. You patet auf Shabbos, auch gepatet. Da bist du die Geulah, da bist du das. Ich kennt das so viel Monnen. It was very nice, it was good, but you know what I would have done at this time? And they say the bicycle at the Geämpfert, when Isaac sagt, Hakol Yedicha, Hakol Yeshabchicha, Hakol Yemri HaKudesh Kasher. En Ayid hat noch nicht Tshuva getan, but alle Eier müssen gut nicht helfen. When Isaac says, Hakol Yeducha, Hakol Yeshabchicha, Hakol Yemri HaKudesh Kasher, when Ayid didn't do Tshuva, all your Muslim won't help anymore. What was this discussion? I think it was like, he held him, I'm better than you. That wasn't. This the Baal Musa was a Yingel and the Shti was a Yingel, and they were both higher than Gaiva, than Ich. I'm better than you better than me. That wasn't the discussion. The Baal Musa was an Emes Baal Musa, an Emes Tzaddik, and he really meant to tell you of Klal Yisrael. And he looked at every moment he saw 10 Yidden, he would have to make him do better, do good, Machazik the mitzvahs. And he saw 1,000 Yidden by a Rebbe, that's how he was so waited. But you're expecting me to do that? That's not my job. I'm not a Baal Musa. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Kvat Peh. You got a Kvat Peh. Moshe Rabbeinu had gesagt, Poker Yivkoit, and it opened all the neshamas of Klal Yisrael in Vayam and Hom. Vayaminu Bashem of Moshe Avdoi. It goes together. So the Bible said, when Isaac was you know what he does? He opens all the shabbos that are under him. He has a connection to each and every one. He knows each one where he is. And he makes him say along, Hakol Yeducha. And Hakol Yeshivas. Hakol Yoimru. This Erzak. And Mach Zichar as Hakol Yoimru. He says, if that didn't touch that heat, if the neshama wasn't awakened, it means there's Geblim HaNefesh HaBamis. The Nefesh HaBakis is Geblim HaHavam Ateres, hidden in there. You're a Muslim. So the Aveda, because the Mashiach was among the Temimim, the Shama, for that that's that we need to have tzaddikim. Somebody asked me once, Shiur. Somebody asked me once, why does Chabad have this modern minik that they finally eat? We found them on a mitzvah tank, first time we came. And the first opportunity they have, they're going to schlep it in the Rebbe to get $1 from the Rebbe. Yehudis is a good time, the guy just came off the boat. He knows nothing, doesn't know an aleph, he knows nothing. Teach him kids, teach him a few halachas, epes. You know what? You're Chabad. Teach him Tanya. Teach him something. When it'll be accomplished, when it's like Tzulia talk and down, then eventually you'll bring it to the Rebbe. It's a good kash. So I told them, it's not my mashal, it's a mashal of the Mittler Rebbe. I said it took for them, but he said this mashal. Mittler Rebbe, I'm sure you all heard this if you ever went to Farbrengen. It's a famous mashal of the Mittler Rebbe. There was a parents. And if the mashka didn't pay the rent, he would throw him into a pit. In the olden days of jail, they didn't have all the gadgets and all the barbed wires or whatever to make safe. So they made a big, huge pit and put cement around it and a huge block of 5 feet tall cement on top of it. Nobody runs away from that. And that's what they did. So they threw in a mashka who didn't pay the rent. They threw him in with his wife and he ended up in the pit. Yeah. Most of the times, Yidden, the Chmona would find out, they would come and ransom him, give the money, and then get him out. And the Zohar given the nicer, and nobody got to know, everybody forgot about him, and his parents threw him in there and threw away the key. And Nebuchadnezzar there is sitting, rotting away, Nebuchadnezzar jailed with his wife. But the Rebbe Shemashach Seder Oilam, living there with his wife, and years later, his baby going as a baby born. Make the story of the kids, it took 7 generations. 7 generations are there in the kids. And for states there's a whole big crowd already, there's a couple of, other kids, whatever, and there's discussions. Some believe that the fact that every morning a little hole opens and bread and water falls in, some have such a seder. The Zayda didn't pay the rent, and that's why they're all here, and therefore, the Poritz has to give him food, so he throws in some water. And why does it become so light? Because there's a sun out there and it shines it. That's such a Kabbalah. Others say, what are you talking about? It's Mother Nature. It's called Mother Nature. This is the whole world of it. When they have what they have over there, this is it. So the vikuach, like usual. So some people have proofs. When they found on the wall some inscriptions with blood. And he writes, I'm the third generation. I still remember Zayd, who he says he came in here first. He remembers that. Also, the other inscriptions, people deny it, that this was, it's not a raya, you never know. Kids are archaeologists, all kinds of computer codes. Rayas, he tries, doesn't work. So the Friedrich Rebbe asked him, "This is a Schwitzbod? Schwitzbod, a spa." So he says, yes. So the Friedrich Rebbe told him, describe it to me. Described, there's a potter that goes, the heat comes out from the bottom, and there's bretelach, there's little beds, and the higher the bed is, the harder it is, and you also have the highest ones that really, and then there's a mikveh, there's a shamasl, and he has a little broomstick. And he goes around and he schmeises everybody in the back. And people say, a little higher, there. No, there. Moedik. So Frank the Friedrich Rebbe tell me, can you take this bezel and go to a person in the middle of the street and give him a schmeiss with it? He'll say, Bargov, I'm calling police, what are you hitting me for? What is this? But I'm a warrant to freedom. If you warm him up first, come and schmeiss. He said, you talk to the Muslim say. Am anwaren wir Yid mit der Farbrengen, reinbringen ein bisschen Chayes, an the Shomas, an the Sate, be anwaren, noch dann kann man schmeißen. Yeah. But accompaniment, back to the, so, mit Amol fell in the other year. It will take him 9 months to believe where he is. He's in denial. He can't believe this. The world is shut off and he's locked up in a pit. Yeah. So the question is like this. If you have a person in the pit who doesn't have a money. He's frei, Shiur, frei, he doesn't believe in anything. You want him to believe in the truth. You have two options. You have a book that has hundreds of rayas from that inscription and from this inscription, and Haggadah's Ateres from the Messiah, people who know Ish, going back to the first person. Or you could go over to this new fellow, this Martian, this extra-celestial person who just fell into this world, and go over to him and do nothing. Don't even talk. Just give him Shalom Aleichem. That's all you need. That will answer any kasha you ever had. The shamas that come into this world, says the Alter Rebbe, could turn into tzippanayim. They are the shamas. They all come from there. But their world, what they see is a pit. In the Sahaba Ateres, it's hidden. It's Olam, Rosh and Hela. It's a hell of a Hester. And it's a Hester. Hester Pony. Reichi Hester. By the way, I saw a word of other from Caldwell from Rabbi. It says in Pasuk, Astiro Panamehem. Nach dem steht, Roik ist in Zene Soes, Ateres Eila. He will sagen, Al Ke'eno Lekai Bekirbi Mutsuni Ateres Eila. In other words, he will recognize as a Chman al-Islam because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And the Chnebach Mutsuni, that's all they said. He will do tshuva. And they'll be made. Why is it? Because Eino Lekai Bekirbi, so left us for under the Ashgacha of Nishma Megish. Then next pasuk is V'noichi haster kona b'yena. Frag the Rebbe, the Rebbe Shliach. Yidden just did tshuva. They were makir, Eino Lekai Bekirbi. That's why the Tzaras came. What's the punishment for this? V'noichi haster kona. Double story. Steht schon früher als die Rapport. That's all right. Das ist doch Chassidische Sefer. It's not like the Shama, it's not like the Mensch. So the Rebbe says, if a Yid comes to the lowest common denominator, it comes to the lowest madrega, the biggest tzaras nebach, and he feels, I'm lost. It's over. Shiach. I'm not shaykh to anything. Don't talk to me, Rabbi. Find yourself a better target. I'm gone. And er sagt, Eino Lekai Bekirbi. Sagt der Rebbe, weil der Yid sagt, Eino Lekai Bekirbi, it's worse than all the Avedas that he did till now. That's what the Yetzer wanted to get him. And he should come to him, Iskana, that I can't do tshuva anymore, I'm lost. Of them sagt der Rebbe, kommt Ateres, double stuff. So how do you take off this stuff? Just go over to this marshal who just fell in, who was a cook for Yeneveld, and he fell in. He's just here with the goof, because they threw him in here, but he is back there. That world is real, this world is not real. Just give him shalom. Tes Kislev Farbrengen, bread. And here, on the Shabbat Chassidus, yearns for Mashiach, yearns for a word from Eibishter. That talks way more than many stuff. So I told this guy, if you have a shaila person, a fryer person, you bring him, you need to bring him closer to Hashem. He has to bring him to a Rebbe. So give him shalom aleichem to the Rebbe. Get $1 from the Rebbe. Because that is the kasher. The Shabbat, then the Shabbat will do the job. Chaim. Vayetama lecha nafshi, kama lecha b'shari, b'yed ha'ochama, He's asking you, the Rebbe could pick you up, why do you need to do avodah with Gancz? mechuyev first of all to do Taryag mitzvahs. Not the Rebbe. The Yid is mechuyev. In order that Taryag mitzvahs should have a kesher, in the Eibishter, there's the Neshama, and they should feel the Kirvus and the Kim, and they should do it. As we spoke before, that I need any place the other Neshama should scream, that should be my whole thing. For that you need the Rebbe to be moided that you do. Of course, the Rebbe is not doing it for you. The Rebbe says noch a Zach. It's an interesting thing. In Tanya, he brings it from the Arizal, but you don't see it too much in many other Suffern Chassidus discussing this. The Alter Rebbe writes it very clear in Tanya. The tachlis of the neshama that came down to this world is not because of the neshama. It's very interesting. Pashtat all the ways it's a Yerid, it's a Richaliyah. Neshama Lamaila is believable. When it comes down Lamata, through the Avodah, the Aravanya, the Skafia, the Habche, change. So it goes Lamaila much higher than it ever was. Which is evidence. It's true. But that wasn't the Mechur. It's a schar. The Mechur was that the Neshama should come down here in Akuf Gashmi and make over the Nefesh HaBamis. But the Rebbe says it very clear that that's the Tachlis. And under the words we spoke at the beginning of the idea of the Malach and Taina Tenoit, Chalash Shemayim, the Rebbe should have gesagt, Tzavak and the Shvarch and Yisrael, Dira the Tachtoilim Davke, and to make over this world, that this grabe Welt soll werden bekushet zum Eibishter. Immer machen Nefesh HaBamis. The Nefesh HaLokis gets connected to the Rebbe. So the Neshama leicht men. Tanya. Then also gets put waste. Then the Nekuda that the Nefesh HaLokis has to make over the Nefesh HaBamis, they stay in Tanya. The Nefesh HaBamis is not a Ruchnik. The Nefesh HaBamis is a Dom it's Klippa. So for that, the Alter Rebbe gewollt soll sein Dafke the Luchachim and Binnen Das, because the Behemoth versteht das nicht. To be masculine, to bring it down in such a way, as get Iber machen the Nefesh HaBamis also. And that's the Tachlis of the ganze thing. As it was a Zayin Asad Lover, as Roy Kobasa. By the way, we're just singing the Niggunim Tzamal of Hanafshi. Steht Suffern. Rashi says, Tzamal of Hanafshi, Kama Lacham Sori. So Rashi says, Kama, Gancz Losh Tzemoyim. Ve'elu Dinge B'mikveh. What does that mean? First, it means it's the only time in Torah, Caldwell Tanakh, that it says the word Kama. Rashi says it means actually the same thing as Tzama, but I don't find a chaber to it. It's the only time it says it. Steht in Tzvara, Tzadikim state that Kama Gancz Tzimoy. But such a Tzimoy that Kama has, you can't find a ding to this Tzimoy. Der Tzimoy is ein loy din. So I was thinking, what's the pshat? First steht Tzama L'chawat, Nafsh. Then the Fedish, there is a din. Malachim, Srofim, Mefanim, there is a Havel, a bread from the Shama. Then he said, they kids. Other than the Shama is an Ephes Kitseyu. So Tzama L'chawat Nafshi, das the Mama sagt, aber komm al sorry. Da Tzimoy, es kommt da raus noch, wenn es ein immer macht, Nefesh HaBamis. Lass Lover, was the road Kobasa, komm al sorry, was ein Ding in der Mikve. Das ist schon. Das ist unser Rabbi. Rabbi ist immer macht. before to Tes Kislev, I think enough with Chachmas, Drasha. And it was a Farbrengen Rebbe. Ik kan het terugzetten, nog vertellen. Maar ik terugzetten, dat vertellen de hele tijd. My son, Shliach Suffern in New York, als a bacher, he learned the visions first before he went to the mountains. He had the visions in the bush. Solomon Hittel, like that. So he learned that, then he learned in Morristown. On Friday he would go from the sun. He'd take the train, go to Newark, whatever. Many times he would come home to Muncie with the train. I thought they would pick him up like 10 minutes before Shiur, 15 minutes before Shiur. So 1 week, he called me, it was so late. I begged him, do me a favor, find somebody. It's so late, it's not before Shiur, I have to run. So he called me back to him and said, Tati, I found someone. Shabbos, he told me the story. He says he walked off the train. So he saw a guy coming out of the train, took out a yarmulke bucket, put it on. So he asked him right away, so where's he going? To Muncie. So he said, yes, he's going to have a ride with you. Yes, took him a ride. On the way, I schmoozed with him. So, and my son looked like a Lubavitcher Caldwell. I didn't know who he is. So he asked him where he lives, what he's doing. So he told him he lives in Blueberry Hills, for those who are familiar with Muncie. Area in Blueberry Hills. So he told him a story like this. He told him that he lived first in West Nyack. And he went to the West Nyack synagogue, which is a conservative shul. He got married. And a few years went by. Unfortunately, he didn't have any children. He tried everything, and then he went into this conservative rabbi and he asked him, what should I do? I'm lost. I tried all medicine, everything. It's finished. So he told him, well, the skater is the same, if you keep it secret, I'll tell you what to do. Make sure you're not telling anybody. He says, write a letter to the Baal HaTanya. The conservative rabbi told him. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe. And sure enough, he got back an answer. The Rebbe wrote to him, if you want to be helped, you have to follow all Tate. Tate is the Makkah and brachas and everything. If you follow Taras, I'm Shliach, the Rebbe is helpful. Thank you. So he tells my son, so what did I do? What did I do for children? I went out, it wasn't fancy like today, you have all these fancy things. I bought a kitzur Shulchan Aruch, translated in English, simple halachas, yes, no, yes, this you do, this you don't, finish. I followed halachas, and the Baal HaTanya gave. Sure enough, next year he was born, a little baby girl. Just 3 years later, started to look for a school. So I went to the public school. So my wife tells me, a gift of the Lubavitcher Rebbe you send me to public school. It's normal. How can you do that? So we decided to send it to a Hebrew school. Mrs. Greenwald in Muncie, she had a famous place, a Hebrew school for hundreds and hundreds of Friday kids. It was a very good school. And the first day the child came home and said, opened the fridge and started looking, Mommy, I don't see the OU, I don't see the OK, where is it? So, what did you do? So next week there was full of OKs and OUs. And then Friday Tzanach, so she came home and she had the whole thing with the whole arts and crafts, candles. And the mom, what's the good candles, you know? Slowly but surely, you have to drop everything and move into Muncie coming from the Yid. So this was like 10, 15 years later. He said, so this is a story like in the millions, which nobody would ever know, because this man is not all about it, so he didn't write it down. He didn't gave a hitch for somebody, but the point erzählt nice. There's an andere Werte, das ist ein Rebbe, that thinks of a Yid, and tracht von a Yid, jede Keuches for a Yid, to be Mekasher himself back to the Rebbe. I had myself also, I went up to the Chabad Suffern, first Shabbos, very Kiddush. People were sitting around the Kiddush. I think 10 people there. I asked people to introduce themselves, say their name, who they are, what they kesher to Chabad, kesher to Yiddishkeit, whatever. So one person was sitting next to me. His name was Mr. Pellis. So I asked him to speak. Mr. Pellis says, Rabbi, I don't speak in public. Please. No. But Tzayne Shalom, is that okay or not? Next person spoke. Everybody finished speaking. After that, he says, Rabbi, you know what? I'm so inspired by everybody. I want to say something. So he starts telling a story. Once upon a Friday, that's his lashon. Once upon a Friday, when the Lubavitchers do what they do, meaning the Bachrim go around to the Tzayne. So there was a mother and a father and a 3-year-old girl who walked down the Fifth Avenue Library. I don't know if you're familiar, you're all New Jerseyans, but whatever. Fifth Avenue Library is, I think it's a whole block wide, a square block in Manhattan. And there's stairs, marble stairs for the whole width of the whole building. So it's like it's a landmark. So it was a mother and a father and a 3-year-old child walking down the stairs. And two Lubavitcher boys on a Friday were walking out, 15, 16-year-old boys. And they stopped this little girl and they asked her, are you Jewish? And she gave an answer with just a smile, such a proud answer. She said, yes. So they asked her, are you lighting Shabbos candles? She started shrugging her shoulders. Me? A little kid? Shabbos candles? My mother, when she doesn't have a business meeting that night, when she makes a meal, once in a while she lights candles. So the two Bachrim took out a package of Neshek, Shabbos candles, and they gave it to the little girl. And they told her, the Lubavitcher Rebbe has a big campaign, such as a Freshach Kafel in this world, terrible darkness, and we need to bring in light. And a mitzvah is named mitzvah. A mitzvah to bring in light, especially a mitzvah which physically is light. So the Mela, Lubavitcher Rebbe requests that every little child from the age of 3 and on should light candles. So this man continues, and that little girl took it so serious, that she never missed a Friday night. Never. And then he continued, and he said, this lady is now a mother of 6. She lives in the 5 towns, and she is the head of the ladies' auxiliary, the shul or something like that. She runs the whole shul, whatever. And then, he said, and that little girl, he choked and he couldn't talk further. He says, it's my daughter. So I asked this man, Mr. Pellis, is this the story you want to keep back and not to tell? I don't speak in public. You know how many stories there is such like this? Das ist fast angezogen an Lichtel, angezogen an Hashem, Neir Hashem, Nishmas Odom. Ich geschickt 1000 Wochen in der ganzen Welt, that's so South America, North America, wie du wirst, fast Pschute in Russland, in der ganzen Welt. 1000 Jeden angezogen sein Shamme, übergekehrt an Shamme. In the millions. You know? Some became from, some are just lemechts and the shlish, but we started in the bring on film and do other. Because the Moshe Tov says it's kashrus and tzaddikim, but the Alter Rebbe explains in Barichas, such a Baal HaTanya, that that's the connection of every neshama to be connected to Shemayim was through Vayaminu Hashem and Meshiach. Meshiach makes the connection to the Eibishter.
Be Moisef, Prat. I could speak loud. In the Sikha that we were learning this week.
Yeah.
Just adding the Prat. The Sikha that we were learning this week, which I'm not going into right now, and the hero that learns that even when the Amos has stated there's challenges, nevertheless the person has to know that Tzimtzum is not control. It's not a real hell and master. It's actually just as something that in your mind it seems so. And you have to know that it's only for the purpose of revealing the chelek of the Kami Mal Mamish. Und die Keches, was the Rabbeim haben wir never eingelegt. To reveal the Keches that we have for the Rabbeim. And on that line, the Rebbe is saying in the footnote, the Tanya Perik Beis. So it's not just that Tanya Perik Beis explains to us why the tzaddik is necessary in order to unsettle the neshama, as Gancz is saying, but somehow the Rebbe learns in Perik Beis that the Rabbeim give us keches also. So that way we should do what we have to do. And maybe that touched upon this question, that it's not that the whole kunz is not that it should get done for us, but that we should find the keches, that we should do it ourselves. But it's just so interesting to me that he was designed to be based, because it's not mamish, but it's talking about it was the keches was the Rabbeim of the So I'm just as a footnote to what you're saying, as a kino reference to the base, and that is that in addition to everything that the Rabbeim, the Rashi Alfi Yisrael do for the Anshei HaTorah, they're also investing keches into us, and we should do what we have to do.